What's good? Today I want to speak about 5 essential tips for emerging artists. The first tip that I would say has got to do with building a strong online presence. This is a non-negotiable in 2024. I think there are a lot of artists that just want to make art for the sake of making art and sort of get discovered in that way, and that's just not going to happen. There's just too much stuff going on for you to not have some kind of content. I'd even go as far as to say, as any professional that's trying to make their way, trying to build themselves up quickly, get clients, you have to show what you're doing. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to sound like a guru. You don't have to do any of that stuff. But you do need to show what it is that you do. Otherwise, people don't get to see what it is that you do. People don't get to see your reviews. People don't see, they don't know you. Therefore, they don't trust you. That's just how things are now. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a strong recurring presence. It's important that you do, but it doesn't have to be this thing of you're posting every single day all the time, and because then you end up spending all of your time posting, and you don't have to do that. You can take an approach or work on a strategy that involves more static posts. So static posts might be, if you're a writer, that might be writing a few blog posts and putting them on a blog site and referring people to those. It might mean getting a videographer and going and maybe making 4 videos about your business and putting those online. Whenever someone asks you, you just refer them to that video. It becomes a static, evergreen piece of content that you can keep pushing out to people in different ways. If you want to do Facebook ads, you can do ads using those very same videos. It's one of those things where you can sort of jippo the system. You have to be around all the time, but it sort of feels like you're around all the time. I use that same tactic all the time. A lot of the stuff that I've done, I will batch it out and I will record 6 videos in one go. And that's me. That's me for the month. I can't do any more. And then what I'll then do is chop those 6 videos up, and then they will then go out at different times. I think that's pretty much that with online presence. Having a compelling brand identity. This is an interesting one, especially for musicians, because musicians are so much about their story in their music. I know rappers in their raps, they always talk about where they've come from and everything that they've done. And I'm like, but it doesn't show when you are depicting yourself online, when you're illustrating, when you're showing yourself online. It doesn't show that these are the things that you're interested in. These are the things that you like. There was a guy I was speaking to yesterday. He was talking about an interest that he had. And I was like, this is actually a really cool interest that he has. Take it and show it. And you don't have to go and do the thing. Because you like soccer doesn't mean you have to go and play soccer. People know I like soccer, but it's not because I go and play it. It's because I'm posting about it. I might find an interesting post on a team that I support, and then I'll put it out there. If I see something interesting going on that's got to do with soccer, I'll then post that in addition to the other content that I'm posting. You see how everything's sort of always filtering back to the content. Yeah, having a strong online presence is important, and I think having a compelling brand you can sort of work the two together and making sure that you are just doing things in a repetitive way. Not in a repetitive way, but you're doing them consistently. That's the word. Something as simple as transitions between different shots in your videos can be consistent. Using font when you're doing, even if you're using a CapCut font for your subtitles, if they can all be the same, at least then when people come to you, they know there's this certain aesthetic that they get from you. There's a guy I follow, a voice guy. It's not really a voiceover artist, but is a guy who manipulates his voice. And he's got this very washed out, color distortion thing going on in all of his videos. And that for me is his aesthetic. He's always in a dark room. It's not really well lit. He looks a certain way. He looks a bit aloof. It's a bit mysterious. That's his aesthetic. If he was to be in a super well lit room, people would be like, whoa, this looks a little bit weird. Do something that you're comfortable and then like lean into it. Do more of that thing, basically, is what having a compelling brand means. Networking and collab. So important, so overlooked. Having a strong base of people that you can reach out to, whether it be for assistance, whether it be for collaboration, is so important because it assists with cross-pollination, cross whatever it is. When you want to not take advantage, but you want to sort of creep into other circles and talk to people in those circles. A lot of the times I'll do a collaboration where I'll do a video with someone, they will post a video, I'll post a video, we'll do a co-post. And in that way, we are both feeding off of each other's fan bases. Some of their fans follow me, some of my fans follow him, and in that way, there is that integration, right? You integrate in your network over there, then you do the same thing over there with someone else, then you do it over there. It's almost like doing a brand collab, but not really with like a full-on like Nike or whatever it is. You're just doing it with the person next door, and it works because there are people who haven't seen your stuff, and to get it to them, you have to do more than just posting to your people. Sure, your people there'll be word of mouth, and they will push. If they really like your music or they like what you're doing, they'll push you on to the next person. But just by having a collab, it just makes things easier. I remember the times that I would have people jump on my beats. Other people would then contact me through them as a referral. And it doesn't have to be like a verbal referral. It can be like, so and so endorses them, I'm going to go work with them as well. Or I'm going to go listen to them as well. Yeah, very, very important. The fourth thing is having a monetization strategy. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse now when I talk about royalties and getting yourself registered and getting all that stuff done properly. But it is so important. I always say, like, if I was to become if I was to become a receptionist, one of the first things I'd want to do as part of that employment is to know, when do we get paid? How much do we get paid? How am I going to get paid? Those are important things, right? There's the job and all the things I need to do. I get it. Cool. But let's talk about one of the main reasons why we're here. Is the money. In the music industry, it's not the case. We are always on I'm here for the art first. It's almost like I don't want to be seen to be talking or thinking about the money as though it's a bad thing. So we never really focus on our monetization strategy. How are we going to, what's the end loop? There always has to be a loop where you create the product, you create the content, you do the thing, you put the music out, you do all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it can't be a case of you're going to try and make money off of sales, CD sales. No one does that. Are you going to try and make money off of streams? Streamings don't pay well, and it's only going to get worse. So you have to come up with some kind of a strategy. Are you going to create a product? Are you going to have merch that you sell? Are you going to do shows? Is that how you're going to make your money? There has to be a way. Is royalties your game? Figure it out. There has to be some kind of monetization strategy. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You're going to run your business into the ground. You're a business. You're going to run yourself into the ground because you're not going to see any return on your investment. It's silly. It's silly to think like that. And then the last thing is then consistency and resilience. These two go hand in hand. You want to do something for a long period of time, and even if you do fail, you need to know that it's not the end. Consistency is a big one, and I've seen it in action. I've seen it in people around me even, where they will start at something. Maybe they want to start making sync music. They'll try it for a year. They'll dabble and dabble and dabble and dabble and dabble and dabble, and then eventually at the end of that year, they get a small little royalty payment, and they're like, okay, cool, I worked really hard, but now what's going on? They then wait, because they've put in a lot of work, right, over that year. Then they wait, and they're like, it's whatever. Then the end of the following year, they haven't done anything, but now that little money that they would have gotten, whether it be like 500 Rand, is now 7,000 Rand. And they're like, whoa, this was nice. Is this what it feels like to work and be consistent about something? And that's exactly what happens. Sometimes you're one or two steps from really breaking through. And imagine what you would have done had you just been consistent throughout that time. You wouldn't be 7,000. Look, it might have been 7,000, but then you might have set yourself up for the following year for it to be 21,000. In the following year for it to be 80,000. Right? There has to be that continual thing. And there's a massive element of patience, I think, that we overlook. Patience is it's a very tricky word. It's easy to say, be patient. It's very easy to say. Even with the football team that I support, I know that people will come out and say, we need to be patient. We need patience. People will say, I'm not an overnight success. I've been working on my music career for 15 years. In your mind, you're like, oh, patience is important. But it's weird. Somehow deep down inside, we all just go, I think I can do it in 1 year. But I think I can push it in 6 months. And that takes that whole patient conversation and throws it out the window. You're not being patient. There's a certain element to real patience of almost like you're expecting it to not happen. That way, when it does happen, you're kind of like, oh, that's cool. And That's important, especially for long-term things like sync licensing, where you have music that you put together slowly and painstakingly and then send it over to a publisher. They reject certain songs. There's certain changes that need to be made. Then from there you send them back. Then eventually they accept. Then from acceptance you just sit, because now it's just silence, because you've done all of this hard work and you're not hearing back from them. A year goes by and you're kind of like, oh, what next? But in that period of time, while having that patience, if you had true patience, you would go, I've done the work, I've put the time in, I'm done with this project. It's time to move on to the next one. This one will awaken, or it will blossom into a flower when it does. But I've got patience to know that it might not be a year, it might not be 2 years, it might never happen, but it might happen, right? And it sits well with your soul, and you're like, oh, let's move on and you truly move on to the next project. I've seen people sit and they harp on about one thing. There's a guy I used to work with, and he got a feature on a track, and he would refresh that track each day. He'd go to YouTube and he'd refresh, and then hit refresh the following day, and then hit refresh, just to see that slow climb of views. And I'm like, you're not benefiting from doing that. Sure, focus on that maybe once a week in the beginning, and then eventually just put on autopilot. You've put that song out. Your mind and your energy and your effort now need to move on and focus on the next thing. That's where that true patience comes in, I think. So let me know if there's any other tips that you'd give to an emerging artist. You can leave them in the comments and we can start a conversation. Peace.